And of
Yeah.
course, now we step into the re-innovation, kind of like a regeneration period. Before we just demolish all the, the older buildings. Now we have to preserve at least 80% of the, the area. The
That's amazing.
any 20% of the building can be demolished within a certain area. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any current like large scale renovation projects of particular areas at the moment? Like, are there
Yes,
some that you're focusing on?
yeah, I think each of the district, because Chongqing have many districts,
Yeah.
each of the districts have their kind of program for the urban renewal. So
Yeah.
they have kind of like a pioneering project for regeneration. This process just started a few years ago. Like I introduced the Chang'an number 3 factory, Longmenhao, all the
Yeah.
famous regeneration project now in Chongqing.
Yeah. Yeah. Longmen Hao and Hong Yadong were
Yeah, Hongyadong, yes,
beautiful. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
I was
beautiful
astonished by
place.
them. I love the doors. The shape of the doors was, yeah,
Yeah,
something else.
people
Yeah. I
come
mean, like I
to,
said, I don't know extensive history about these things, but yeah,
yeah,
I found it super fascinating, incredibly beautiful. Yeah.
yes,
So I
yes.
was going to ask, in terms of um, both new build and I guess renovation, what building materials are mainly focused on for those builds and renovations, and where they sourced from those
Yeah,
materials?
that's a very interesting questions. Like Chongqing, like many other major cities in China, the predominant material used for the building are the reinforced concrete. You know,
Yeah.
this is due to the strength, the durability, the cost effective, and make it a popular choice for the constructing all the buildings. Of course, as the reinforced concrete as a primary construction material, but it's also using glass, steel, cement, various facade materials. Those are specific materials used, depending on, architecture style, purpose of
Yeah.
building, individual project requirements. Now, nowadays we encourage more user energy saving or environment friendly materials with a clean energy on the construction, like a panel and on the facade, and also reduce the carbon emission.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. So let me think.
Mhm.
So how do how do most residents, because I get you said it was super hot today, 38
Yes.
degrees, which is insane, but you have pretty long hot summers in Changchun.
Yes.
So what do most residents use to keep their houses cool? I mean, is it common to use air
Yes.
conditioning? Like, it's not common here to have air conditioning, but yeah.
Yeah, compared to UK, air conditioning is necessary in Chongqing. However,
Yeah.
when we design the buildings in Chongqing, we always try to see the power of nature. For example, Chongqing, the hilly terrain and also the river banks can facilitate the nature ventilation. Many
Yeah.
of the homes are designed with a window strategically, placed to take advantage of the cross breeze, and the nature airflow.
Yeah.
So those are promoting the cooling during the summer months as well. On the other hand, the proper insulation is important to maintain the comfortable indoor temperature throughout the year. You know, insulted windows, walls, roofs will help the heat out, and in the summer, and also return the warmth in the winter. Of course, Chongqing is extremely hot during the summer. Therefore, the air conditioning is used in Chongqing to cooling down the house.
Yeah.
Most of the modern residential buildings are equipped with a centralized air conditioning system as well. More kind of green and more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of I mean, lots of the pictures showed like the pretty extensive green space, and the riverside looks wonderful after the work done on it. But I wanted to ask, in terms of because obviously Chongqing is like quite big, what sort of proportion, I know this is kind of a vague question, but what proportion of residents have access to green spaces, gardens? Like, how common is it to be right next to a green space or the river? Do you know what I mean? Like, how accessible are
Yes.
these things to the
Yes.
population as a whole? Yeah.
I think, many years ago, Chongqing is like a concrete forest, not much green space. But after many years development, now Chongqing is become a much greener city. In
Yeah.
Chongqing, the availability of the gardens and the green space can varies, depends on type of the housing or the specific location within the city. Here's some considerations. Firstly, is the high-rise apartment. Because of limited space, vertical nature of the high-rise apartment, the individual garden attached to resident unit are not very common. However, those high-rise apartment complex normally they have shared outdoor space, such as
Yeah.
a big space for the courtyard, landscape area, and community gardens. They're beautiful, and of course, secondly, for the suburban area and some villas, those are have their attached garden because they're low rise. It's common for them to have a small size of garden, flower bed, those things, lawns, and many of the city residents also use a balcony and a terrace for building to have the green space. Many of the high-rise building actually has a balcony, so the
Yeah.
residents use those space, but not very big. But then use potted plants, flowers,
Yeah.
greeners. Um, and nowadays, each of the city, including of Chongqing, try to build more kind of pocket garden within the city, and also the community garden. So we have more and more those green space stretch out within the city. Now, for example, the Two River Four Banks project, we alongside
Yeah.
the river actually build a lot of the green space for people to
Yeah.
reconnect with nature, so they can sort of go there, fly a kite, play a dog,
Yeah.
and have fun, So yeah, basically we don't have luxury like the UK or the European countries. Each of the house of a garden, but we have those kind of shared space for the green. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. So, in terms of, I mean, I don't know what the rates of flooding are in Chongqing. I don't know like how many housing projects, because from the photos, I mean, it seems like a lot of the housing's set back from the river.
Yes.
But I suppose in terms of generally extreme climate events, how a house is protected from that. Are there any like initiatives or I don't know, like flood defense
Yes.
work so that buildings don't need to be, demolished or anything like that? Yeah, just in general, any kind of climate protection that's
Yeah. I
in
think
place already.
Yeah, I think the safety and the resilience is very, very important for the government and for the local government and the people. So firstly, in terms of foundation of Chongqing, they're pretty much built on rock. So,
Yeah.
when the earthquake come, next door city, Chengdu will be in fact affected, but Chongqing is normally is kind of safe. Of course,
Yeah.
for the flooding, recently there are big flood in the suburb district of Chongqing. There always a mechanism to sort of for rescue, for kind of like checking the safety um, of the defense those stuff. And for the fire, each of the building and office buildings, they always have the mechanism. Probably China have the one of the most strict of fire
Yeah.
protection laws to help the protecting the people from the fire disaster. So
Yeah.
and like you say, from the setback of the rivers, is always the house has to build before the flooding levels. Each of the year there are different levels, but currently,
Yeah.
safe. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah,
mm.
it's crazy. I mean, even my hometown back in Shrewsbury, we had, because I live on a river I grew up in a river town near Wales.
Yes.
And even then, in the past, I want to say 3 years, unbelievable the amount of flooding, like going all the way into town, up hills. But we never had that before. So yeah, I mean, you can't. I suppose it's not something you can predict, and you can't just demolish buildings because they're close to
Yeah, I think
a water source. Or yeah,
Yeah, I think because
yeah,
of the climate change, the extreme weather, it becomes more often. Like
yeah,
the recently the high temperature, probably the highest temperature in history hit quite a few Chinese cities, and the flood
yeah,
become more common than before. So that is really
yeah,
give the architects, engineers more kind of like challenges how to protecting the people, how to make the residential buildings, public buildings more safer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like if I mean, whenever you have extreme periods of drought, if you have any kind of rain, then immediately that's like localized flooding and all. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah, I think it's happening everywhere. And yeah, thank you. So okay, so in terms of general energy sources used by residents, so I suppose I'm talking more like heating in winter and cooking. Like, I mean, I know that a lot of places in London use electricity. I use gas here, gas and electricity, but what's like common in Chongqing and in new builds, what's commonly used to fuel and cook and everything? Yeah.
Yeah. Chongqing, like many other cities in the world, the primarily relies on the mix of the energy source to power the homes. The main source of energy residential uses in Chongqing electricity and gas. The electricity actually the main major source of the energy in Chongqing, and the supplies come from the different the source, including the coal-fired power plants, natural gas power plants, the
Yeah.
hydroelectric power from the nearby Yangtze River, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the renewable energy are more kind of like used gradually more and more, like a
Yeah.
solar, wind. So, but it's still not significant enough, natural gas is also increasingly used in Chongqing, so that is very common. But now China is also towards the carbon neutral kind of like plan. So they
Yeah.
encourage more home to use solar panels using the wind, powers, those kind of things. So everyone hope the city become greener.
Yeah. Yeah. But then obviously there's the whole thing of having to then build new power plants based on those different renewable energy sources, which is also expensive and involves more building. So yeah, yeah,
Lucky enough,
yeah,
the because Chongqing is near the Yangtze River, the three
Yeah.
gorge dam, electronic
Yeah.
effect generate a lot of electronic powers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, um, in terms of Hangyadang and Longmenhao, the are there, like, in terms of new builds? I mean, I know that you said that you showed on some of the pictures on some of the examples of the prospective builds and renovations, some
Mm.
kind of traditional elements, but how much of an emphasis is put on retaining, I suppose, character and retaining traditional architectural, even though I know traditional is kind of a difficult word when things have changed so much over time, and you showed the postmodern and all these things are wonderful, but how much kind of emphasis is put on that for new builds and renovations, on traditional features and, yeah, ways of life as well, I suppose.
Yes, I think in terms of the appearance, the facade and we try to keep as much as we can all the
Yeah.
artifacts or traditional looking, like the carvings or the stones, all the
Yeah.
material we're
Yeah.
using. So we try to make it as much as we can look at exactly like many, many years ago. Uh, but for the functions, the commercial function inside, uh, we kind of like more adapt to the modern facilities. Of course, the layout still quite the same, but the functions we kind of like divided the space according to the modern life requirements. So
Yeah.
I in terms of maintain the originality of those kind of old buildings, we try to keep the respect as much as we can. We don't want to have the faked antique there. We want
Yeah.
original, So I think all the architects, engineers, and the people, everyone is really working hard to keep the place like Longmenhao in a very good shape.
Yeah. Honestly,
Mm.
I'm amazed by the what you said, only 20% of buildings are demolished, because it's even where I'm from, I'm constantly seeing just new builds.
Okay.
Renovation, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but renovation is like a concept. I don't feel like, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I may be wrong. I'm not completely in the architecture world, but
Mm.
in like the Midlands where I'm from, honestly, it's new housing estates, new buildings, and so the
Yeah.
emphasis on renovation, I think, is
Yeah,
brilliant.
I think it has
Yeah,
it's when the country developed into a new area.
yeah,
Previously we're the same. We demolish everything and get
yeah,
this built, but people lost the attachment to their homeland. Many years ago
yeah,
when there nothing can be seen. When they return home. So this is some problems we have to address, and of course you know the scheme is just started a few years ago. They still have a long way to go. Try to
yeah,
protect some historical buildings. Try to sort of revitalize the local economic. We have to find the right balance.
yeah,
Sometimes you have to really to make it a financial feasible. If you just keep everything, because keep everything is very costly as well. Maybe
yeah, of
it's more
course.
expensive than get it new built. So
Yeah,
really have to find the right balance to make that place sustainable, and people come. Not rather than just like you put there and preserve there, nothing happens. You have to keep the activities, the people flow come in, and the economic, activity there,
yeah,
everything. Mm,
yeah.
mm.
So, hmm. So how, I mean, I don't know if this is like something that's prioritized or whatever, but how are you managing to ensure like affordability for, I suppose, existing residents and maybe even people moving in? Are there any schemes to help affordability for like,
Yeah.
especially because you said maybe it's more expensive to renovate sometimes,
Yeah.
a lot of the time, and yeah.
I think that is the challenges for all over the world. You know, not you know what any problem for China, because
Yeah.
when you come to the affordable housing, is a big challenge for every government. Now I think you
Yeah.
know the government is subsidize some sort of you know, renovation of the older houses, and also when relocate residents of the new build area, they always have some protection schemes as well. So, but it's not necessary to say that everything went smoothly, but you know, always have that kind of affordable housing scheme within
Yeah.
the urban planning is a very wise decisions. Now, when we're doing urban plannings, we always have that kind of affordable housing concept in our mind. There are commercial housing, there are also, you know, affordable housing, and it's a, I think it's a very standard process for the urban planners and the city managers, city management, the government have to consider.
Yeah. Thank you. I know you briefly, you mentioned this at the end of the presentation, but in terms of requirement, like what requirements are enforced for new builds to be classed as green? Like what specificities do they have? I mean, you don't have to, I'm sure there's like loads, but just into like briefly, I suppose.
Yes. This is really like a scientific questions.
Yeah.
Each of the country have a different standard. You know, like
Yeah.
in the UK they have BREEAM is a green standard for the buildings.
Yeah.
And America have LEED as a green standard. In China, we have green stars. You know, so you know, 1 star means kind of like you reach the standard level for the green building, and the 3 star is the top of the kind of like a green building. So basically, when we're talking about the building itself to reach a green indicate, they have lots of indicators in terms
Yeah.
of the land, you know, the resource, the
Yeah.
material, you know, how you construct it, how you you know, insulation your windows or your roof, everything. So when then evaluate your building, then we'll evaluate from all the different perspective, you know, the material you're using, how you construct it, you know, how you sort of utilize the renewable energy, stuff like that. So everything come together, then give you a score.
Yeah.
And if you score high enough, you probably get a 3 stars.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So my last question.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you personally, Dr. Juan, what are you looking for students who are participating? Like what, maybe even just one thing, like what would excite you in like a proposal from someone who's participating in the competition? Yeah, I don't know.
Oh God, this is a
Just like it's one
difficult.
tiny thing, like like what would make you go like, huh, interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, a lot of elements of this, you know, were exciting me. I mean, I would like to say from the student look for some innovative ideas to for the future sustainable development. As we said, you know, during last few days, we already see the extreme extreme temperature, extreme weather. You know, how the new generation will face those kind of nature disasters or the challenges, how we can make the earth more sustainable, make the city more beautiful and more resilient, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, it's honestly been fascinating, and you've been such a lovely person to talk to,
Thank you,
Dr.
Hazel.
Huan. It's been really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel. It's my pleasure to talk to you as well. Hope you
Yeah,
enjoy the nice weather in London.
I will. I will, and I'll hopefully one day I come over for that hot pot, man.
Yeah, why not?
I
Chongqing
would
will
love
work on you. We need more
that.
people to know this city, and yeah, don't forget to introduce me to your architecture friends. Maybe we can work some
I
architecture
will.
projects together.
That would be
Yeah.
honestly an absolute joy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Thank you.